My son turned 16 and got his driver's license, and he's like, Mom, I'm going to my friend's house. My whole world came crashing down. Oh my God, who am I if I'm not Taxi? No one's called it a personal earthquake.
When you were initially starting that journey of letting go, you said it almost killed you.
I hit my business success goal. I didn't leave my chair from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. That almost killed me because it was all me. I can't sustain by myself.
Read the letter to their former self. So this is where you are talking to your younger self.
Dear past Rachel.
Here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes you're not overwhelmed because you have too much to do. You're overwhelmed because you won't let go of the things that no longer need to be yours. Today, I'm joined by Rachael Davila, a delegation and implementation strategist, mentor, author, speaker, and founder of Extra Hands Virtual Assistants. In this conversation, we talk about the identity of being the person who does it all and how delegation can become one of the deepest acts of self-leadership. Hello, Rachael. How are you?
Doing well, Dwayne. Thanks so much for having me.
I am really happy to have you here today because we're talking about something today that I know I still struggle with to this day, which is delegation. So speaking to you, so for anybody who doesn't know, you are a delegation and implementation strategist. So you're the person to talk to because you help people delegate and get the right support for what they need, be it, their personal leadership needs or business needs, etc. So I want to ask, why do people have, and the people you've experienced this with, have such an issue with delegation?
I think there's a number of things that can get in the way. I don't have time to manage someone. I can't afford to hire someone. It's easier if I do it myself. No one's going to do it the way I do it. I know for me, I didn't think about hiring because I was the doer. And I think a lot of people get into their business to do what they're passionate about, and they end up doing all the business behind the scenes stuff, and it doesn't. By the time they're saying, maybe I need help with this, they might be so overwhelmed that the idea of bringing someone in is too much. And they may not have their systems and processes figured out or in a way that they can communicate it. And so that adds an additional layer of overwhelm and separation from the idea.
You mentioned business owners. So I was wondering, is there any differences you notice with the challenge of delegation between business owners and people who lead teams and organizations?
I came from being a mom and a solopreneur to being a team owner. And I think part of the disconnect for me was managing my family wasn't how I managed my team. And I think with solopreneurs, most of them are solo for so long, and then they bring maybe one or two team members on. Larger teams, you have a lot of different personalities, you have different communication styles, you have different expectations, and how delegation shows up in the team structure. I know in college I was a stage manager, and so I was the hub of the wheel for all of the different departments, and each designer, each department had their own perspective, their own needs. And so as the assistant to each of them, I was managing the director's expectations, each designer's expectations, and even within my own clients, people communicate differently. Some are verbal processors, some can write out what they're doing. And so managing different personalities and communication styles and everything, if the person delegating isn't clear on what they need, how they communicate, what they're looking for, then that can really create a bottleneck because the person doing the tasks doesn't have the clarity that they need to support each different delegation style.
So it sounds like there's no real difference when it comes to the art of delegation, whether you're a solopreneur, as you're saying, or whether you're leading a larger team in an organization. So I guess that comes back to that question of what is delegation?
Delegation is letting go of the things you don't want to do. To basically that's my word in a nutshell. It's handing the things off that aren't yours to do. And I remember a coach asking me, why is it yours to control? And that shifted everything that I looked at. And I now look through everything through that lens. What is mine to control? And there are a lot of tasks that we put down on our to-do lists that have multiple steps. And some of those things are things only we can do. And other tasks are things we can hand off or let someone else do. And so delegation is having that clarity that I don't have to do it all by myself and recognizing what is mine to do and what can I hand off. And in the handing it off, how do I clearly communicate that so that the results fit the vision that I have for that task? And so I think where delegation gets lost is I know a lot of visionaries. They have this grand vision, but they don't know how to break it down into those tasks, those actual like step-by-step instructions to then be able to say to somebody, I'm going to write the content, but I need you to do all 19 of the other steps, like writing a newsletter, right? The business owner is the person who is the expert, drafts the content, but formatting, editing, putting it into the scheduler, doing all of those things can be easily handed off. But the business owner still needs to know how to say to someone else, here's the support that I need, here's what it looks like, and here's what good looks like, the outcome looks like, because they have that in their brain, their imagination.
And that's a really good description in terms of supporting the person who is taking on that work to really have clarity. And I think you giving them that clarity, that very decisive outline of what they're responsible for, what it looks like, and how to execute it is crucial, I can imagine, in delegation. However, I see this side of leaders where the accountability is on you. So whether you're leading a department in an organization or your own business, the stakes are different because if it's your own business, then it's your own finances, it's your livelihood. If it's a department in a company, then it's resources you may be wasting or maybe promotional opportunities and recognition. So there's things at stake, albeit different. So what would inspire somebody to want to delegate if they believe that they can do it better?
In the virtual assistant space, and I've actually seen this play out in other industries, these are my terms, doers and collaborators. So a doer is kind of employee minded. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. They don't take too much ownership of what they're doing. They're just transactional. They're checking tasks off a list. Collaborators are more business partner minded. They look at the goal, the vision, the mission as a whole, and then where are the tasks and the job functions, how does that fit into that overall vision? Now, I think where delegation can get tricky is when the delegator thinks they're getting a collaborator and they get a doer, and they don't have the vision, the process, the procedure clear enough to be able to manage the doer. In solopreneurs and the clients that I work with, when we're talking about finding the right fit, we're looking at, is it a transaction? Are you looking for a relationship? Do you have clear systems and processes in place that you can clearly communicate? Or do you need somebody to step in and help you create those things? I think in corporate environments, business environments where they have a team, if they haven't done that kind of work, or maybe they've gotten somebody because HR hired them, but the person actually doing the work with them didn't have any say in it. I know when I worked for the phone company, I went through a whole rigorous test to become an engineering administrator. And I worked with two very different teams and had, area managers, but they didn't hire me. HR hired me. So while I fit the list of criteria for the job description, there's personalities involved. There's, like we said, communication styles and all of that. So the support teams could be stepping into an environment that they may not be the right fit for, even though on paper they look like it. And that can work both ways, to where the support person doesn't feel confident enough to step up and be solutions and go above and beyond. And the person doing the delegation doesn't feel that trust factor of, I can hand this off to you, you get me, you're supporting me, I feel safe. In that environment, it might be a training issue. It might be having a conversation to clarify what the business goals are and how the support person fits in with them, and establishing that. And from a leadership perspective, this is something that I had to learn when I hired my own VA, was I didn't know I was a verbal processor. I didn't know I needed accountability. There were so many elements that I didn't know about myself as a leader, because I'd always been behind the scenes. I was always the one supporting the leaders. While I could step in and say, I see your vision, here's how I can help, I wasn't the one driving the ship. I was just first mate. When I stepped in to be captain of my business growth and I needed to communicate that to my VA, that's where things got tricky, because I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know how to clearly communicate it. I didn't even know what I needed as the leader, as the delegator. I learned it as I went. And it did help me once I figured it out, and it made my working relationship so much easier and better. But that growth, that I was the bottleneck for a long time, because I was like, I don't know how to hand this off to you. Not because I didn't want to, or I didn't trust that they could support me, but because I didn't know how.
So it sounds like it's pretty multifaceted when you think about the art of delegation, because if based on what you said, let's put them in two different buckets of leaders. You have a collaborator and a doer. The collaborator is probably better suited in a situation to delegate, because they're working out that vision as they go along with that individual. Whereas a doer would just give that individual these expectations and expect them to go out there and do it, or they would just do it themselves. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah. I use doers and collaborators in terms of support, but you even putting it in perspective of the leaders, I absolutely do think it works both ways. I think that a lot of leaders, that's where they struggle. I think they think in terms of the tasks and they don't think in terms of their needs. How do I think? How do I communicate? What are the gaps that I have? Right? A lot of my clients are ADHD, so they squirrel all over the place and they need me to provide accountability, timelines, structure. When they're veering off, bringing them back to the goals and the journey that we're going on. And I don't think that's just a small business mindset. I think there can be leaders who are like, you know, the higher ups want me to reach these milestones. Well, how do you break down those milestones to actual like individual tasks so that you can quantify, are you hitting your milestones? And if the leader isn't clear on what the milestones are and what the steps are, then they can't communicate it. And if they get squirrely or they're like, oh, well, I think it's this way, but maybe it's that way, or we can go this way, and there is no set path, then the support is just doing busy work. They're not actually driving the needle forward. And so the leader might need somebody to kind of steer the ship and be like, hey, we thought this was going to be the good way to do it. We haven't quite figured out if it's the right way or not. Let's do this some more before we try a different path or a different way. So I do feel like knowing what you need from your support team can also go a long way to figuring out what kind of leader you are and how you show up. Are you a micromanager? Do you want to just say, here's a project, run with it, however you do it is great as long as the outcome is the same, right? There's different styles of managing and leading. And if you don't know what yours is, then that's something to look at and maybe get some coaching on, or, because if you don't know what kind of leader you are, then how do you step in and lead?
You know, it's incredible. We're only 20 minutes in, but I've already felt like I've learned so much about delegation. Like, it's a lot more multifaceted than you actually think it is. Because in my mind, typically when I think about delegation, and I'm sure there's others who support this, it's that you take a couple tasks that are on your duties list and you say, I do not want to do these anymore, and you just give them to someone else. And it's not like that. Like, there's a lot involved in it. There's a lot involved when you talk about the vision, when you talk about how that is passed over. Are you giving it to somebody who's a doer or a collaborator? What will they need? What will your leadership require? Like, delegation is something that you have to perpetually take care of. It's not just a handoff. So I wonder, how would somebody know they're prepared for delegating before they move into delegation and potentially do it wrong?
For those business owners who are looking for virtual assistants, I created a quiz. Are you ready for a VA? And it's 7 easy questions. And it basically says, you're ready, you're almost ready, you're not ready. And then there's steps and follow-up emails to help you get to that next level, whatever it is. But I think if someone is asking, am I ready to hire support? You're on the journey. So consider the handoff list kind of is the first place to start. What are the tasks that you're handing off? What are you looking to delegate out? And then it's looking at those tasks with some curiosity and some realism. Are they strictly transactional, or do they require more collaboration? Do I have clear outline processes and procedures for someone to just step in and do these? Or am I looking for someone to help me create those and have a little bit more experience, knowledge of how to do it. Because those are two different leadership styles. Those are two different types of delegation, right? I had one client, and he's an anomaly for my business. He had clear processes outlined, and he said, "How can you help me with this?" And I was able to go through the list and pull out everything that I could take over. We can create a template for this. I can do this. It's an automation for this, template for this, right? It became something that could easily be handed over with some communication. Now it's mine. He doesn't even have to think about it. Whereas I have other clients who, I want to do a virtual summit. I never did one before. What do we do? And I had to take my experience of doing virtual summits to help them create it. They were looking to me for that experience. So knowing what you're handing off and where you land in it, right? Even if it's, I copy and paste this email every time I'm in this part of a client journey, right? That's a process. That's a procedure. So even if it's just recording a video saying, I copy this email, I do that, that can become a template for somebody. But if you don't know what you're doing and you really do need that hand-holding, that support of someone who can step in and say, I see what you want to create and do. Here's how we can do that. Those are two very different mindsets to step into the delegation realm from.
What do you say to people who are listening to this, but have realized they just have a fear of letting go of control?
I feel you. I was right there with you, and it was super hard. And it takes some, Joseph Campbell talks about the hero journey, right? There's the visible journey that you can see, which is I'm going to hire a VA and I'm going to let go of these tasks and I'm going to, my business is going to thrive and grow. That's the visual thing. That's the thing you can tell somebody. But internally, that character arc of you going from I'm a solopreneur to now I'm a teampreneur, I'm a leader, I'm a delegator, that's a whole journey. And it takes some reflection of, I didn't know what I need, but now that I do, how does that show up? How do I communicate it? Is this the right person for me with what I know about myself? Can they grow with me? Trust gets built. And the reason why I talk a lot about finding the right fit does take some of that fear away from hiring support. A lot of clients came to me because they hired cheap support. There is nothing wrong with outsourcing, hiring an overseas team if you are looking for a transactional, I have clear processes and procedures, I can talk to anyone about it and they can do it. Most of the clients that have come to me weren't clear on what they needed and they expected a doer to step in and just help them lead the relationship. Doers don't do that. You need a collaborator. You need somebody who can say, all right, if all we have is the vision, here's how we break that down and get them to that point. They might help them lead to those processes and procedures that can then get handed off to doers. But it's knowing where you're at in the process. If there's a lot of fear of letting go, it might be because you don't know what you're doing and you don't have those things in place and you need somebody to help you get them in place so that you have that foundation under yourself, under your business, so that you can delegate things off. Now, existing businesses, right? CEOs, they don't they don't step in as CEOs from the mailroom, right? They learn as they grow and they go up. So they're learning those skills, they're learning the company, they're learning the mission, the vision, all of that as they grow up. So they probably, I know a lot of executive assistants who work with CEOs and they've watched the CEOs change in the course of their careers. They never left, but the bosses that they had did. I know I wasn't the first engineering administrator for the team that I had, but right, everyone is different. And even if you know your job, right, and you get a new assistant or you get a new support person, can you explain it to them the way they understand it and can support you? And so I think a lot of the fear of letting go comes from, I don't know it well enough, or I know it so well and I don't feel safe with who I've picked as my support.
How did you get to this point? What was your journey in becoming a strategist around delegation? I could imagine it touches you personally from some point in your past.
So I started my business working for my dad, who is a very charismatic salesman. And he was like, I can't run my business by myself. I need help. He just knew he needed help. He didn't know what kind of help that was. He was scheduling for himself. He was doing follow up. He was the block because he made the money by being in front of the clients. Anytime he was in the office doing all the behind the scenes stuff, he was losing money. And I was able to step in and help him organize the back end so that all he had to do was show up. And those skills translate to so many industries. Administrative assistants, whether they're virtual or in person, they keep the show running. They keep everything behind the scenes working. You need reports for your meeting, they run it. You need to schedule out meetings. They're the gatekeepers, they're the schedulers. They're making sure that you still get to go to lunch with a friend and not miss, not overbook. There's so much that support people do behind the scenes that if you don't pay attention, you don't even know. I kind of liken it to like a movie, right? You have the actors and actresses, and they're this tiny little square. And then you have all the people that that build the movie behind the scenes. That's what a good administrative assistant can do for business, even personal assistants, right? I mean, we're not just talking about business right? When I started going through this journey of letting go, it showed up at home first. I went from 30 billable hours a month to 80 billable hours a month, which may seem easy, right? A 40-hour work week. But when you're a virtual assistant business, for every one billable hour, there's like 2 to 3 butt in the seat hours because we have our businesses to run. We're not charging necessarily for all of the time between calls or disruptions. And it almost killed me. And I needed to delegate to my family dinner, dishes, cleaning the house, all the things that I couldn't get to because I was in it. I was in the business for a small amount of time. And letting go of how the dishes got put into the dishwasher. That was like, why is that a hard thing to do? It's a hard thing to do when you're used to being the one doing all the things. And handing off dinner wasn't just handing off dinner, it was meal prep. Do we have the groceries? Going grocery shopping, thinking about what is it going to be, and all of those steps in between. And leaning on somebody else is scary and it's hard when you've been doing it all. As a mom, my kids needed me so much when they were younger. When my son turned 16 and got his driver's license and he's like, "Mom, I'm going to my friend's house." My whole world came crashing down because I was like, who am I if I'm not taxi, social director? Does his mom even know you're coming over? Like, the identity fallout of change can be vast. And you don't know that it's going to be an implosion until you're sitting in it going, oh my God, who am I now? I just let go of this big piece of who I am and nobody else notices, but my whole world is rocked. No one's called it a personal earthquake because that is what it feels like sometimes to let go of something that's been so ingrained in you that you're literally left going, what is going on? Who am I? What just happened? And it's not always a bad thing. I mean, it gives us that opportunity to grow, but there is a little bit of grief that comes with that shift, that change, that I'm not the same person I was yesterday. Who do I need to become to be okay with this new version of myself? And what do I need to do to grow into that? And that's part of that internal character growth. Who is that person on the other end? I am a solid delegator. I know what I need, who I need, and how to communicate that. That's the end goal, right? But the beginning goal is, if I let go of it, will I fall apart? Maybe you might, but you pick yourself up, you learn, and you grow into that person who's like, now I got my systems, now I got my process. I know that my team is there to support me. And if at some point the team doesn't, how do I adjust? Is it a thing that I need to adjust? Am I the bottleneck? Do I need to take a class or read a book on communication, or are we just not the right fit? That's okay too. Not all pairings are meant to last forever. So what do I need to do to transition out of one support person into a better support person? My first VA is now our podcast manager. And so I needed somebody to fill in behind them for the tasks that they did that they no longer wanted to do. And so I brought in another team member. And even now, I'm recognizing that while the team that I have is good at the things that I have them do, neither of them are the fit that I need to level up to the next level for my business. So I'm hiring another VA who is that more collaborator, can help me look at what I'm doing now and how to make it better. And within that, there will be things that my existing team members will take on because that's what they're good at. So delegation is an evolution. It's an evolution of the outer journey of what does it look like, but also that inner journey of, I can do this. I can let go of these things because they're not mine to do. And if I let go of these things that aren't mine, it creates so much space for the things that are only mine to do. That creation, that vision, that expansion of, if I'm spending 12 hours on my social media, that's 12 hours I'm not creating workshops or talking to podcast hosts or building out the next phase of the business. So handing off those 12 hours to my team creates a void the universe will fill with creativity and ideas and, ooh, that's going to be what's next. Yes, please. And so I think if you're feeling scared about it, know it's normal. Know it's your brain's way of protecting you. But if you can do the work to even just do the pre-work before you hire somebody, look at your systems, look at your processes. How can you document them, streamline them, at least be able to say, I use this scheduling tool to this, and here that's how I schedule clients, and I send them this for my contract. I didn't know all the pre-work that I learned as I worked with my VA. And I put all that pre-work into my book because I didn't want business owners to have to struggle through the way I did. It was a gap that I saw. I've been a virtual assistant for 21 years. When I first started my business, no one knew what a VA was. If I said, I'm a VA, they thought I worked for the Veterans Administration. Now, everyone knows what a virtual assistant is, but they don't know that there's more than one kind, that they need to have knowledge about themselves before handing off their business to somebody else. And it's not just, here's my handoff list, take it, run with it. It's creating time and space in their day so that they can start that process with a VA or a support person. Employees get 90 days probation. Are we a good fit? Is this working for both of us? The same is true for virtual assistants and virtual, whatever kind of support you're looking at, because everyone does things differently. Every business has a different culture, a different brand, a different voice, a different way of doing things. And we might be working in the same programs, but I got to figure out what's unique to you. How do you communicate? How does that show up? All of that. So as the business owner, do you have time for those weekly calls, for that? Okay, I thought I was clear on it, but I guess I'm not. So let's have another conversation about what it looks like. That front load of time saves so much time in the back end, because you might go, well, it's just easier if I do it myself. But if you spend the time up front saying, I don't like quotes ending on one word. If you say that up front, then you're not having to continually go behind and changing the graphic. You're able to go, one time, here's my edits, and it won't happen again. And so I think people come into delegation thinking, I'm just going to hand it over and then I can walk away. That's not how it works. You're still in charge until your support gets the hang of it, and you then feel, okay, now I'm supported in this aspect. And then it grows into what's next and what's next and what's next. And that's how you build trust. You start with one thing and then you build on that. And it does help that take away that fear of, I can't, to what's the smallest piece I could hand off and still feel safe.
If I'm hearing correctly what you're saying, and I like what you're saying, especially when you talk about delegation being this journey, it's this evolution, because it starts in this place where there's that fear of letting go. It's obviously compounded with what do I let go? But it's tied to your identity as well, because letting go of these tasks or these responsibilities in some ways is you feeling as though you're letting go of parts of you. So that's a very uncomfortable feeling. But as you described it, as you go along that journey and you really start to master that art of delegation and get the right people around you, it frees you up to do more of the things that light you up, more of the things that help you grow, that help move you forward. So I love that perspective. There was something though that you said that I wanted to dive into because I thought it was really important the way you described it. Is you said when you were initially starting that journey of letting go and realizing delegation was going to be your next um, kind of next challenge, your next path, you said it almost killed you.
So I hit my business success goal that I'd been striving for 15 years, billing 80 billable hours a month. That almost killed me because it was all me. I had to do it all. I was doing all of the work. And that was when I really started to go, I can't sustain my level of success by myself. If I want to do this, and and I would like to say that I came to that decision on my own to hire a VA, but a coach actually was like, why don't you hire a VA for yourself? And I laughed because hiring a VA kind of seemed ironic to me at that time because I didn't want to be a team and I didn't want to be leading people. I just wanted to do the work. But to hit my level of success alone was not sustainable. And I got sick. I was diagnosed with diabetes because I didn't leave my chair from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. on the daily because that was how much time it took to do the work. And self-care is a real thing, right? We can't, that's not sustainable. And so when I hired support, it created that space for me to grow into that level of success and it not resting solely on my shoulders to get there. I hope that answered that.
It does. It does because it sounded like you were burning yourself out. You were being overwhelmed with your own goals and responsibilities. So I can imagine letting go as much of that must have been a relief for you. It must have been challenging for people who are listening and who are in that same place where they're being overwhelmed, they're doing a lot, they don't feel that they could ask for support or they don't know where to go. What would you say to those individuals?
You don't have to do it alone. Sometimes you just need somebody to listen to the overwhelm and help you make sense of what's in there. Because when you're in the bottle, you can't read the label, right? So when you're in it and you're just doing it, you can't necessarily go, oh, I can hand that off or I can hand that off because you're just in the doing. So what I can help clients do is I hear this, I hear this, I hear this, and pull out those things. Because even just sometimes having the knowledge of what can be handed off can create some relief to, even if I'm not ready to actually do it yet, even just knowing what is possible can feel a little bit freeing.
It sounds like you help others by more than just taking tasks away. It sounds like you help from a positive perspective, or I guess from a growth perspective, you infuse more capacity in those individuals and potential energy into the things that are going to really help them. How do you do that though? How do you do the work that you do?
So I use my extra hands method. We clarify what you need, plan how you'll work, hire the right fit, and create a solid partnership. So a lot of that beginning work is that clarity. What do you need? What is your handoff list? What kind of VA or support person do you need? What are the actual skills and qualities in the person that will help fill in the gaps that you have. Then it's, what's that plan look like? Is now the right time? Do we need to phase it out? How does that look for you? What questions do you ask in the interview? And what does onboarding look like? And then it's finding the right fit. So I have a VA referral directory so I can help with finding quality virtual assistants, but also I know other people outside of that because I build that VA network. Because if I'm not the right fit, then I want to refer somebody who is. But then there's also that 90-day period, right? That happens after you start working with someone. Is it working? What's coming up? What are some of the issues? How can we troubleshoot them? How do we work through them? That outside support that knows both sides, like, no, really, it is you. You're the bottleneck. You're hoarding the stuff. You need to communicate this better, can go a long way to helping somebody really step into that leadership delegation role and say, you're right. I am hoarding this. I do have to let it go. And having those like 90-day conversations that kind of go, all right, I've handed off everything on my to-do list. I don't know what else to give my VA. Oh, well, what about all these other things that were important to you that you're not thinking about? So it can go through the whole process.
Hmm. It got me thinking when you're asking those questions. It sounds like there is a very intentional perspective there. It's how can I help your work be better? How can I help you be better ultimately? So we're talking about, and we've talked about delegation from a beneficial standpoint. However, benefit doesn't always means it's good or it's right. So I have to ask this question because I know I'll get in trouble if I don't ask this question, but there are some leaders who delegate for the sake of just taking work off their plate, but then taking all the credit after. So I guess there's two questions there. Is for the leaders who are doing that, what risks or damage could they potentially be creating that they're not aware of? And then the second part to that question is for those who are taking on the load and not getting recognition, what are their options?
So I've been a small business for 21 years purely because I wanted to be valued as the support person. I got downsized from my corporate job because they were cutting the admin line item, not individuals, just a number on a spreadsheet. And I didn't want to be just a number on a spreadsheet. I wanted to be a valued member of a team. So I think part of why I talk so passionately about finding the right fit is it works both ways. Leaders want to find people that really do support them, and support people really want to work with people that reciprocate that support. If a business owner or a leader is taking credit for your work, do you have the ability to ask, are we still a right fit? Sometimes you just got to pay the bills and keep the lights on. And so you work in that environment, knowing that that's not necessarily the right fit for you. There is real value in collaboration. And so to the leaders who are doing that, you run the risk of having someone who is a really valuable team member leave and take all of their skills with them. And you may not get a replacement who's as good or knows you and the business as well. That's what I would say to them. For the other side, if there is a way to communicate and say up front, that doesn't feel right, how can we change that? If that's not available and leaving's not available, I don't know how to fix things in that kind of environment, but I tell all the new BVAs that I mentor and meet, you are a business owner working with other business owners doing administrative and operational support. You are not an employee. You don't work for them. You work with them. And so, from my perspective, and I can't speak for like a corporate, right, admin job, but from a business to business standpoint, we are interviewing the business owner as much as they are interviewing us. So we want to make sure the fit is right on both sides. So know what those qualities are that you're looking for. Ask questions that will tell you, do they fit that quality? Or are there red flags? I have a hard no on those workaholic, high speed guys. I want to make $5 million in the first 3 months of business. I don't want to work that hard. So I already know, thank you, I'm not the right VA for you. But that takes confidence, that takes time, that takes experience to, when I know I filled my practice up early with less than ideal clients. So I do understand I got to pay the bills, I got to make money. But I think the more you go along, make those lists of all of the people that you've ever worked for. And this can work for leaders and support people. Who did you love working with and why? Who did you not like working with and why? And if you're a leader and you're going through support people consistently, then maybe do that self-reflection and think, maybe it's me. Maybe I need to brush up on communication, or I'm asking too much, or I'm looking for the wrong support. So,
Well, thanks for explaining that because I know that a big area for a lot of people when it comes to delegation because it's as important delegation as important as delegation is, it can be used for evil purposes, let's just say. So you really want to make sure we identify that part. Is there anything, Rachel, that we didn't discuss that you wanted to talk about?
I think if you're dipping your toes into delegation or you're asking, hey, do I need support? Know that there is pre-work to it. Do that work, and you don't have to do it alone. And however you start small and build trust with yourself, with your support person, with your team, and know that every struggle is a learning opportunity. And I do a weekly reflection of what went well and where I struggled. And a lot of that struggle in the beginning was delegation. I didn't give my VA any work this week. What's going on? Is it even worth it? Oh, it was me. I'm the problem. Like, I had to do that hard work of reflecting and accepting that sometimes the change needs to start within. Every small step that I did built trust with my VA, but also within myself that I can do this. It's okay. I can make those tiny incremental steps to become a leader, a delegator, somebody who steps into that relationship showing up as my best self, even if I didn't start off that way. I can become that. And so I would just say, I'm already cheering you on. You can do it. Baby step your way from I'm not a delegator to I am a delegator, and enjoy the ride because you're going to learn so many things about yourself that you're like, I didn't even know that was in there, but okay. Thank you.
Oh, that self-discovery is one of the most fascinating parts of self-leadership and that journey that we get to go on. Rachel, you talked a lot about your past, and this is such a fitting part of the conversation because I give it to the guests to read the letter to their former self. So this is where you are talking to your younger self before knowing and doing everything that you've done over these last several years.
I love this exercise, Dwayne. I just got to tell you, I actually send letters to my future self using futureme.org. If you haven't done it, try it. It's so much fun because it will literally email it back to you. But I did write a letter and just read it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I cried at the end a few times that I practiced. So if I do it, I'm a bit of a crier. Dear past Rachel, I know life and business feels like a lot right now. Like everything depends on you. And if you don't hold it all together, it will fall apart. You didn't plan for this. You didn't know what you were stepping into. But you're about to learn something that will change everything. You don't have to do it alone. In a few months, you're going to ask for help. At first, it won't feel natural. It will feel uncomfortable, messy, and harder than just doing it yourself. There will be tears and moments you wonder if you made a mistake. You didn't. Because every time you push through one of those moments, you're not just getting help, you're becoming a different version of yourself. Right now, you're staring at a mountain, and you think you have to climb the whole thing by yourself. You don't. You just have to take the next step, and then the next. Somewhere along the way, you'll realize you were never meant to carry it all. Here's what I need you to know. Just because you can do everything doesn't mean you should. The moment you stop proving you can is the moment everything starts to change. I'm so proud of you. Keep going, girl. Love, Rachel.
Amazing. Rachel, thank you so much for sharing that and taking the time. And thank you for being a part of this conversation today. I know I took away a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.